If you happen to be one of the millions of Canadians who live in a big city, it's quite likely that over the years you've noticed fewer Canadians wearing a poppy during this time of year. Wearing a poppy from the last Friday of October to the 11th of November is a decades-old tradition that Canadians have undertaken to show respect and gratitude for those that sacrificed their lives for our country. It was precisely this same observation made on a Remembrance Day broadcast of Hockey Night in Canada that fewer Canadians are wearing the poppy in large cities that got Canadian legend Don Cherry unceremoniously fired from his role the following day. He didn't know it at the time, but he actually committed a crime that many of us are prone to unintentionally committing. It's called the crime of noticing. You're just simply not allowed to say publicly what so many Canadians are thinking privately but are too afraid to say it. And if you happen to be like Don Cherry, who has a massive platform, and you dare to say what everyone else is thinking privately, well, you need to be made an example out of so everyone else keeps quiet. Grapes has been one of the best spokesmen in this country for Remembrance Day and for the heroic service of so many Canadians who have served this country. So it's no surprise that since his firing in 2019, Hockey Night in Canada, led by the spineless Ron Maclean, has been unwatchable ever since. Drop a like in the video, help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel. The comment question for the episode is this: do you miss Don Cherry on Hockey Night in Canada? Let me know in the comments, and let's get into it. After 33 years of broadcasting Hockey Night in Canada, one of the flagship programs on Canadian television, and of course, carrying the entire broadcast because he had Weasley Ron Maclean sitting beside him, Don Cherry was fired from his role for saying this on a Remembrance Day broadcast of that program.
You know, I was talking to a veteran. I said, I'm not going to run the poppy thing anymore because what's the sense? I live in Mississauga. Nobody wears, very few people wear a poppy. Downtown Toronto, forget it, downtown Toronto. Nobody wears a poppy. And I'm not going to. He says, wait a minute. How about running it for the people that buy them? Now, you go to the small cities, and you know those, the rows on rows, you people love, they come here, whatever it is, you love our way of life, you love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price. Anyhow, I'm going to run it again for you great people and good Canadians that bought a poppy. I'm still going to run it anyhow.
Love you for it.
The reality is, every single word Don Cherry spoke in that segment was true. Fewer people in this country, whether they are born here or they are immigrants, wear the poppy. Frankly, I think we're all guilty at times of taking this country for granted. But as he said there, the least you could do, if you love this country so much, is to pay a few bucks to wear a poppy. The least you could do. But because Cherry said, you people, the rest of what he had to say was completely overshadowed. Rogers, CBC, and the entire left-wing media apparatus in this country descended on Cherry and accused him of being a racist. And for what it's worth, Don Cherry did clarify his comments at the time. He said that when he used the words, you people, he wasn't referring to immigrants. But of course, the CBC didn't care about that. They were simply looking for an opportunity to offload Don Cherry, an unapologetically pro-Canadian voice who called out what he saw as disrespect to our nation and all the other crap that he would call out on a regular basis. And unlike so many people we see in sports media today, looking of course at Anthony Bass as an example, they always end up apologizing, caving to the mob, and giving up more ground to the radical, nation-hating left. Cherry never apologized, and I hope that he never does. Oh, and by the way, here's a taste of what Hockey Night in Canada looks like today without Don Cherry.
I'll tell you a little story from my point of view that will probably lead you first, and then Kwame. When we did an interview a year ago, Kwame and I, after Devontae Smith-Pelly had to deal with racial agitation, and it was a nice conversation. But I said to Kwame, you know, I don't see you as black. I don't see Tara as a woman. And then I realized there's your white male privilege. You know what, Ron? You don't have to see that because you don't need to see that. And you told me, Kwame, an amazing story about when the kids throw back to Hockey Night in Canada. As a general rule, they're often all white. And if they're not all white, the whites often have the speaking part. And it's the same with our Rogers Hometown Hockey. We're so proud of being inclusive, but how many times do we get people of color to pick the 3 stars? And it was just a real eye-opener that I don't recognize the structural racism or sexism.
Look at what they've taken from us as Canadians. It's hard to imagine that we actually had this guy on the airwaves, let alone on CBC, by the way, for so many years. Here is a look back at Don Cherry's best moments. How about when the late Toronto Mayor Rob Ford had Don Cherry donning a bright pink suit introduce him at Ford's swearing-in ceremony?
Well, actually, I'm wearing Pinko for all the Pinkos out there that ride bicycles and everything. I thought I'd get it in. I wouldn't expect Ron Maclean here to come here, but you know, I am befuddled because I thought I was just doing a good thing coming down with Ron and Rob, and I was going to do this here, and it was going to be nice and the whole deal. I've been being ripped to shreds by the left-wing Pinko newspapers out there. It's unbelievable. One guy called me a jerk in a pink suit, so I thought I'd wear that for him too today.
Here's the next one. Cherry not having any time for Ron Maclean, saying that some Canadians that aren't white don't have a fair shake in hockey. Cherry wasn't having any of it.
I said you'd have to ask Chris, but why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't some kids feel like they haven't been given a fair shake in life? Ask Davis Inlet.
Fair shake in life. Go out and get your own fair shake in life and work for it. Don't give me that stuff.
My second favorite moment from Don Cherry was when he gave this interview to the CBC. A CBC journalist accused him of being a nationalist and of being offside with the public. And Cherry's response, in my opinion, was perfect.
And the people that drink the beer, pardon me, the people that drink the beer agree with me.
What do you hear from them?
Honest to God.
What are they thinking about these days?
What are they thinking about? They're ticked off. They're ticked off, and I try to tell you this, they're ticked off at the foreigners coming over here earning the dough. This is what I hear from.
Are you a safety valve for people who are stewing about all kinds of stuff, or are you dangerous?
I don't know whether I'm dangerous. I just say what I think, and it's the way I think. You could say it's bigotry if you want. I don't think it is. I'm pro-Canadian. More so than I'm anti-Soviet or anti-Swede. I wish more Canadians were like me. We let people come in and take our fish, and the people are starving down there. They let people come in and wreck everything on us. They come in, and it wouldn't happen if I was in Parliament. And foreign aid, if you want to get into that, here we got people dying. Here we got people dying for want of beds, and we're giving money to the foreigners. No way. It'd be Canada first. And Canada only.
Last but not least, my favorite Don Cherry moment was when he called out what he calls the Canadian syndrome. Not enough people in our country speak like this, and it's time that we as Canadians had a bit more pride in ourselves and our nation. Take a listen to what he has to say here.
They get thrown together to the job. But listen, you kid, don't get caught in the Canadian syndrome, where if it's Canadian, it's got to be bad. We're the best. I've been telling you the best. How about the guy that used to be on about 4 or 5 years ago? And you know those other, the amazing upper body strength of the Russians. So amazing. They're nothing. Just a minute.
No,
They're
sorry.
nothing.
Tournament in Calgary.
N-O-T-H-I-N.
Had a
nothing.
finished touch, but only one at a touching finish, and that was overseas, according to Don Cherry and the coaches' Wilson Hockey Night in Canada on CBC.
Remembrance Day, November 11th, is coming up this Saturday. At True North, we wanted to do something special this Remembrance Day. Create something of immense historical value that could live on for years to come. I had the great opportunity of being able to interview Honorary Lieutenant General Richard Romer, one of Canada's most decorated citizens, a World War II reconnaissance fighter pilot who served this country during D-Day, the Battle of Normandy, and the liberation of Holland. And here's a quick preview of our discussion.
It was scary, but there wasn't, I was never afraid. I was very confident of the airplane and confident that I would never get hit. Never. And that's the way you had to approach getting into the airplane, turning it on, going with the 1 or 2 other airplanes with you, and you know you're going to get shot at. But it isn't a fear quotient. It's you have to do it. Let's get it over with and do it. And that's the way I went with my 135 missions. I had to do it that way.
We will be releasing my interview with Lieutenant General Richard Romer this Friday. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us today on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Reminder to wear your poppy. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.